There is a specific kind of arrogance that comes from having an affair with your boss. You stop feeling like an employee and start feeling like you own the building. When you know you can walk past the receptionist, bypass the executive assistants, and lock the CEO's door behind you, you develop a God complex. You look at your coworkers stressing over deadlines and performance reviews, and you secretly laugh, knowing your position is entirely untouchable. I thought I had the world completely figured out. My husband, Thomas, was a senior director at a massive private equity firm. His entire life revolved around risk assessments, asset management, and corporate restructuring. He spoke in metrics and margins. He was a brilliant man, but living with him felt like living inside a calculator. There was no passion. There was no chaos. He was perfectly content to spend his evenings reading the Wall Street Journal in complete silence. My boss, Marcus, was the exact opposite. Marcus was the founder and CEO of the mid-sized tech marketing firm where I worked as a regional manager. He was charismatic, aggressive, and commanded every room he walked into. The affair started at a corporate retreat in Miami. From that first night, I was completely addicted to the power dynamic. For nearly a year, I lived a flawless double life. I used my husband's wealth to buy designer clothes and bags so I could look the part of a high-powered executive on the arm of a CEO. Marcus and I would take business trips to Chicago and New York, staying in penthouse suites paid for by the company's expense account. I thought Thomas was completely oblivious. Whenever I came home, Thomas would just be sitting at his desk, staring at his multi-monitor setup, reviewing endless streams of data for whatever new corporate acquisition his firm was working on. I genuinely believed his brain was too saturated with numbers to ever notice what I was doing. About 2 months ago, Marcus told me his company had hit a plateau. He needed a massive influx of capital to scale, so he had quietly put the company up for acquisition. He was looking for a private equity firm to buy a majority stake. Marcus was arrogant about it, of course. He bragged to me in bed that whoever bought the company would have to keep him on as CEO, pay him a massive buyout, and that once the deal closed, he was going to promote me to vice president. We would run the company together, rich and untouchable. Around that same time, Thomas started working absolutely insane hours. He was pulling 90-hour weeks, taking international calls at 3 a.m., and basically living at his office. When I asked him what was going on, he simply said, "My firm is finalizing a highly aggressive hostile takeover. I'm finding the structural flaws in a company so we can dismantle their current leadership and rebuild." I didn't think twice about it. I just patted his shoulder, told him not to work too hard, and used his absence to spend even more evenings at Marcus's apartment. Then came last Monday. Marcus sent out a company-wide email at 7 a.m., calling for a mandatory all-hands executive board meeting at 9 a.m. sharp. He texted me privately. "The buyout is finalized. Wear your best suit. We're celebrating today." I was ecstatic. I spent 2 hours getting ready, wearing a sharp, tailored blazer, feeling like I was about to step into a new tax bracket. When I walked into the main glass-walled boardroom, the energy was electric. All the senior executives were whispering. Marcus was standing at the head of the long mahogany table, practically glowing with arrogance. He winked at me as I took my seat near the front. "Listen up, everyone," Marcus announced, silencing the room. "As of midnight last night, a majority stake of this company has been officially acquired by a Tier 1 private equity firm. This is a massive win. The lead partner who orchestrated the buyout is here this morning to introduce himself, address the board, and formally secure my position moving forward." Marcus clapped his hands together, gesturing to the heavy double doors of the boardroom. The doors swung open, and my husband walked in. The air instantly left my lungs. My vision actually blurred for a second. Thomas walked into the room wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, holding a sleek leather briefcase flanked by 2 corporate lawyers. He didn't look angry. He didn't look surprised. He looked entirely, terrifyingly in his element. I tried to swallow, but my throat was bone dry. My heart started hammering against my ribs so hard I thought the executives next to me could hear it. I looked at Marcus. Marcus had a confused, polite smile on his face, stepping forward to shake Thomas's hand. "You must be the lead partner," Marcus said warmly. Marcus Vance, it's a pleasure to finally meet the man who put this deal together. Thomas didn't take his hand. He just looked at Marcus for a long, silent moment. Then, Thomas walked past him and sat down directly in the CEO's chair at the head of the table. He set his briefcase down and unclasped it. "My name is Thomas Vance," my husband said, his voice carrying effortlessly across the dead silent room. "And I have spent the last 60 days doing a forensic audit of every single file, expense report, and internal communication in this building." My blood ran completely cold. I gripped the armrests of my chair, physically unable to speak. Thomas pulled a thick stack of papers from his briefcase and dropped them onto the table. "Marcus, you built a decent software infrastructure, but your corporate governance is a liability. Over the last 11 months, you have misappropriated over $200,000 of company funds on personal luxury travel, penthouse hotel suites, and undisclosed gifts." Marcus's face turned bright red. "Now, hold on a minute. Those were client acquisition expenses." "They were affair expenses," Thomas corrected, his voice slicing through the room like a scalpel. The entire board collectively gasped. "You spent company capital to sleep with your regional manager, who, as it happens, is my wife." The silence in the room was so heavy it felt like the ceiling was caving in. Every single head turned to look at me. I was frozen, my face burning, tears of absolute panic welling in my eyes. "Thomas, please," I whispered, my voice trembling. Thomas didn't even look at me. He kept his eyes locked on Marcus, who was now sweating profusely, suddenly realizing he wasn't the smartest man in the room. "As the new majority shareholder," Thomas continued calmly, "my first act is to protect the firm's assets from negligent leadership. Marcus, you are in direct violation of the morality clause and fiduciary duties outlined in your founder's agreement. You are not receiving a buyout. You are not being retained. You are terminated, effective immediately, for cause. Security is waiting in your office to pack your desk." Marcus opened his mouth, completely stunned. He looked at me, then back at Thomas, but the lawyers flanking Thomas stepped forward. Marcus realized he was totally outmatched. His arrogance evaporated. He turned around and practically ran out of the boardroom in absolute humiliation. Then Thomas finally turned his eyes to me. There was no love in his expression. There wasn't even anger. He was looking at a bad investment he had just successfully liquidated. He reached into his briefcase one last time, pulled out a manila envelope, and slid it down the long, polished table. It stopped directly in front of me. "Chloe," Thomas said quietly, though the whole room heard every word. "Your position in this company is redundant. You are terminated. That envelope contains your severance paperwork. It also contains our divorce papers. I've already moved my assets. The house is locked. Your personal belongings have been shipped to your mother's house." I started openly sobbing, covering my face with my hands. "You can't do this, Thomas. You can't just destroy my entire life like this." "I didn't destroy anything," Thomas replied, standing up and buttoning his suit jacket. "You built a house of cards on company time. All I did was acquire it. And unfortunately, Chloe, you are no longer a viable asset." He didn't wait for a response. He didn't look back. Thomas Vance simply turned around and walked out of the boardroom he now owned, leaving me sitting in front of the entire executive team, completely jobless, completely homeless, and utterly destroyed by the man I thought was too boring to pay attention.